The moment the lid of the old clay water jar slammed shut above them, darkness swallowed everything, and in that breathless silence, fate made its cruelest joke. Inside that cramped, airless space, with only the sound of their panicked breathing and the pounding of two frightened hearts, he spoke the words that would change both their lives forever. "If we live through this, let us be husband and wife in this jar." It was half desperation, half promise, and entirely impossible to forget. Outside, the world was loud with danger. Inside the jar, time slowed. A nobleman raised on honor, discipline, and rigid rules, had never imagined his life would narrow down to such darkness. All his titles, wealth, and pride meant nothing now. Beside him was a woman born with nothing but sharp wit and stubborn courage, her life shaped by survival rather than privilege. Their worlds had never been meant to touch, yet here they were, pressed together, sharing fear, breath, and the raw truth of being human. They had not started as allies. When they first met, it was through conflict and misunderstanding. He saw her as reckless and sharp-tongued, someone who refused to know her place. She saw him as cold and arrogant, a man who believed his status made him untouchable. Every conversation ended in tension, every glance filled with challenge. Yet beneath the arguments, something unspoken stirred. They noticed the pauses between insults, the concern hidden behind anger, the way their eyes searched for each other in moments of danger. The night they were forced to hide together was the turning point. Soldiers searched the village, accusations flew like arrows, and betrayal lurked in familiar faces. With no time to think, they dove into the jar to escape discovery. Fear stripped away pretense. In that darkness, she felt his trembling, and he heard her quiet sobs as she tried to stay strong. For the first time, they were not nobleman and commoner. They were just two souls clinging to life. After they escaped, nothing was the same. The promise spoken in fear echoed between them, heavy and confusing. He tried to bury it under duty. She tried to laugh it off, telling herself it was nonsense born from terror. But life was not done testing them. Rumors spread, enemies closed in, and the distance between their social classes grew more dangerous than ever. To love each other openly would mean disgrace for him and destruction for her. One of their greatest challenges came from within. Was torn between his heart and the expectations placed upon him since birth. His family demanded a marriage of status and advantage. His name carried generations of honor, and one wrong choice could stain it forever. Every time he looked he felt both peace and guilt. Loving her felt right, but choosing her felt like betraying everything he had been taught. The challenge was pride mixed with fear. She had survived by never depending on anyone, especially not a man with power over her fate. She loved him, but she refused to be a secret or a mistake hidden in the shadows. The thought of being whispered about, pitted, or discarded once he grew tired of fighting society terrified her more than being alone. She chose distance, believing that leaving first would hurt less than being abandoned. Their separation was quiet but devastating. He watched her walk away without calling her back, knowing that stopping her would only drag her into deeper pain. She told herself she was free, yet every place reminded her of him. Life moved on, but neither of them truly lived. The world seemed dull, as if color had drained away. When danger returned, harsher than before, fate forced them together again. False accusations threatened her life, and only his influence could protect her. This time, he did not hesitate. He stood before his family and his enemies and chose truth over comfort. He admitted his feelings openly, knowing the consequences would be severe. His status was questioned, his loyalty doubted, and his future uncertain. But for the first time, his heart felt steady. The resolution did not come easily. They faced exile, loss of privilege, and the judgment of society. Friends turned away. Doors closed. Yet in the struggle, they found something stronger than safety. They found partnership. They worked side by side, learning each other's fears, strengths, and scars. Arguments still happened, but now they ended in understanding rather than silence. In the end, they returned to the village where everything had begun. The old jar still stood there, cracked but unbroken. Standing before it, they laughed through tears. What had once been a hiding place had become the symbol of their promise. No titles, no riches, no approval could outweigh what they had survived together. Their story did not end with perfection. Life remained difficult, uncertain, and demanding. But they faced it as equals, bound not by fear, but by choice. The lesson they carried forward was simple yet powerful. Love is not born in comfort. It is forged in darkness, tested by sacrifice, and proven by the courage to choose each other despite the cost. And so, from a single breathless moment in a clay jar, 2 lives changed forever, teaching that even in the smallest, darkest places, a promise made from the heart can become a light strong enough to guide a lifetime. Morning came slowly, as if the sun itself hesitated to witness the consequences of what had been spoken in the dark. The village awoke to routine sounds, roosters crowing and footsteps on dusty paths, but for Anne, the world felt unfamiliar. They stood apart, avoiding each other's eyes, yet every silence between them was loud with memory. The promise made inside the jar had not faded with daylight. Instead, it followed them like a shadow, stretching longer with every passing hour. Rumors moved faster than truth. Whispers spread that someone had helped a wanted man escape, that a nobleman had been seen too close to a common woman. Every sideways glance carried suspicion. Felt the weight of his rank pressing harder than ever. He had always known how to walk, how to speak, how to keep distance. But now, every rule felt like a lie he told himself to avoid facing his heart. When he looked at, he no longer saw trouble. He saw courage, pain, and a strength that had nothing to do with bloodline. Fear hid behind sharp words. She returned to her daily work, pretending nothing had changed, yet her hands trembled when she was alone. She replayed his voice in the darkness, the way it had softened when he spoke of a future that should never exist. Part of her wanted to believe him. Another part warned her not to be foolish. She had seen too many promises broken by men with power. Love, she believed, was a luxury meant for others. Their next test came quickly. A powerful official arrived, investigating the escape that had shaken the village. Homes were searched. People were questioned harshly. One wrong word could destroy everything. When suspicion fell on, fear tightened around her chest. She stood alone before authority, knowing how easily truth could be twisted against her. This time, however, she was not alone. Against advice and tradition, stepped forward. He spoke calmly, firmly, using his status not to command, but to protect. The room fell silent as he took responsibility, carefully redirecting blame and exposing corruption that others were too afraid to name. It was a dangerous move. He could feel the eyes of his peers burning into him, measuring his loyalty. But he did not look back. His gaze stayed on her, steady and unashamed. That moment changed something between them. It was not a confession of love, but it was proof. For the first time, allowed herself to see him not as a nobleman above her, but as a man willing to stand beside her. Still, doubt lingered. Protection today did not guarantee a future tomorrow. She thanked him with a quiet nod, keeping her emotions tightly guarded. That night, they spoke again, not in darkness this time, but under an open sky. Words came slowly. He admitted his fear of losing everything he had known. She admitted her fear of trusting something that could vanish. They did not solve their problems, but they listened. And in that listening, walls cracked. Chapter 2 ends not with certainty, but with choice. 2 people standing at the edge of a path neither had planned to walk, knowing that stepping forward together would invite hardship, judgment, and loss. Yet for the first time, both felt that walking alone would be far more frightening than facing the world side by side. The days that followed were heavier than silence. Even when the village seemed calm, danger lingered in every glance and unfinished sentence. Returned to his residence, but the walls that once felt secure now felt like a cage. Elders spoke to him in careful tones, reminding him of duty, of reputation, of the future already chosen for him. Each word was a chain, pulling him away from the path his heart had begun to recognize. Meanwhile, felt the change in how people treated her. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with thinly hidden resentment. A few offered kindness, but even that carried pity. She hated it. She had survived worse than gossip, yet this felt different. This time, the threat was not hunger or violence, but hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope made pain deeper when it was taken away. Their next meeting came unexpectedly, in the rain. A sudden storm forced villagers to take shelter, and under the eaves of an abandoned house, they found themselves alone again. The sound of falling rain filled the space between them, washing away the careful distance they had tried to maintain. He spoke first, his voice low but steady. He told her that his family had begun arranging a marriage for him, one that would secure alliances and silence rumors. The words struck harder than any accusation. Felt her chest tighten, yet she did not cry. She smiled instead, a bitter, practiced smile, and told him that this was how things were meant to be. She said he should not hesitate for her sake. Every word she spoke was a lie meant to protect what remained of her pride. She turned away before he could see the truth in her eyes. That night, she made a decision. Before dawn, she would leave the village. Distance, she believed, was the only way to end the pain before it consumed them both. If she disappeared, his path would clear. He would return to the life he was born into, and the promise made in darkness would fade into memory. But fate, once again, refused to be ignored. Before she could leave, danger found her. The same corrupt official, angered by his loss of control, accused her openly of treason. Soldiers arrived, rough and merciless, dragging her through the village. Fear surged, but so did anger. She did not beg. She lifted her head, daring the world to do its worst. When the news reached, something inside him broke free. He rode hard through the rain, arriving just as she was about to be taken away. In front of everyone, he challenged the accusation, exposing evidence he had quietly gathered. His voice did not shake as he declared her innocence. More shocking than his defiance was what followed. He announced that any crime against her would be a crime against him. The crowd gasped. Lines were crossed that could not be redrawn. In that moment, his choice was clear to all, including himself. Titles could be stripped. Power could be taken. But silence, he realized, would cost him something far greater. As she looked at him, bound and trembling, her defenses finally collapsed. Tears came freely, not from fear, but from the weight of being chosen. Chapter 3 closes with them standing together in the storm, knowing that the hardest battles were still ahead, but also knowing that neither was willing to walk away anymore. The aftermath of his public defiance spread through the village like fire through dry grass. By morning, everyone knew that had crossed a line no nobleman was meant to cross. Messengers rode out with sealed letters, and by evening, summons arrived bearing the weight of royal authority. He was ordered to present himself before the council to answer for his actions. The words were formal, but the threat behind them was clear. His future now stood on fragile ground. 4. Guilt settled heavily on her heart. She watched him prepare to leave, knowing that everything he was about to lose was because of her. She tried to stop him, telling him that she would confess to any crime if it meant saving him. Her voice shook as she spoke, anger and fear tangled together. She could not accept being the reason his life fell apart. Loving someone, she realized, also meant knowing when to let go. He listened quietly, then answered with a calm she had never seen before. He told her that choice was the one thing no one could take from him. For the first time in his life, he was not acting out of duty, but out of truth. If he walked away now, he said, he would be a prisoner forever, even in comfort. His words left no room for argument, only understanding. The journey to the city was long and punishing. Along the road, he faced whispers, cold stares, and the silent judgment of those who once admired him. Each step reminded him of what he stood to lose. Yet every night, when doubt crept in, he remembered her face in the rain, the strength in her eyes, and his resolve returned. He was no longer fighting for reputation, but for meaning. Back in the village, faced her own trial. Without his protection, she became an easy target. Work dried up, doors closed, and former friends avoided her. Loneliness pressed in, sharper than hunger. Still, she refused to break. She helped where she could, shared what little she had, and carried herself with dignity. In her quiet resilience, people began to see her not as a threat, but as a woman wronged by cruelty. When the day of judgment arrived, the council chamber was heavy with tension. Accusations were laid out, traditions invoked, and punishments discussed. Just when the outcome seemed certain, an unexpected voice spoke in his defense. Evidence of the corrupt official's crimes surfaced, supported by testimonies he had risked everything to gather. The truth, once buried, could no longer be denied. The verdict spared his life and cleared her name, but the cost was severe. He was stripped of much of his title and ordered to leave the city. Exile, though not spoken harshly, was final. As he walked out of the chamber, the weight of loss settled in, but it did not crush him. he felt strangely free. Chapter 4 ends with his return to the village at dusk. She saw him from a distance, thinner, changed, yet unbroken. Their eyes met, and in that silent exchange lay grief, relief, and an unspoken understanding. The world had taken much from them, but it had not taken what mattered most.